Leaving the British shores for Australia's west coast. So whilst we are viewing English scenes and then scenes of the country that our story is about, let's talk about our settlers that left the English shores for a new life on the southwest coast of Australia. Not even a building to come to. No roads, no conveniences, especially hospitals, absolutely nothing for their easement of life. Let us applaud them all as they played their part in paving the way for WA. As our east coast of Australia was settled in the year of 1788, by 1826 there was talk of the French settling on our west coast. The governing body of our east coast instructed Edwin Lockyer to sail across to our today's Albany, and December 1826 they raised the flag for the British government to colonise our west coast. In 1829, Captain James Sterling, being in charge at Fremantle, there were 6 ships that left London for WA, but progress was almost zero. So Captain Sterling returned to England to pressure the British government to take action to develop our west coast. And after much debating and Thomas Beale requesting to bring out 10,000 settlers to pioneer the development of the Swan River colony. Yes, back in 1829, the scenes of the new colony. Beale, having influential personnel of the government, won through, and his right-hand men were to be Adam Armstrong and John Thomas. This is the story of Beale, Armstrong and Thomas. I am Alan Beale, who with my parents and elder brother left the English shores in 1923. I was 2 years old. Year of 1998 is the filming of this video. Filming in the area of Clarence today, Woodman's Point and future farmland between the coast and Serpentine, Jarrahdale. Thomas Beale was born in 1793. Lived on the Peafold farm estate at Oswald, Twistle, Lancashire, England. Married in 1823 to a Miss Ayton. Beale passed away in 1865. Scenes of inland of the Beale territory. The agreement in the documentation signed by Thomas Beale, Adam Armstrong and John Thomas was for Beale to be clerk of court, his wages 30 cents a day, no doubt it was 1829, 30 cents a day. Passengers were to pay $250 passage and a bond of $100. It was to be a self-supporting settlement on the coast just south of Fremantle and was to be called Clarence after the Duke of Clarence, who was to be the next in line for the British throne. It was June 1829 when the first colonists arrived to play their part for the Swan River colony, and at anchor were the ships they arrived in, Amelia and the Sulphur. How would they have felt, the first personnel to set up their future in Australia's west coast, as our east coast inhabitants had not long been in their new country, and there was no jumbo jets them days to take them back to the country of their birth. They certainly paved the way for WA for future migration. Beale, as clerk of court, certainly was in for many problems. Beale territory still seen. Some points of agreement. Shipping to take out 10,000 personnel, 10,000 cattle to be shipped out, 3 small supply vessels to ply between Fremantle and Sydney, surveyors to locate 200 acres to each person, to cultivate tobacco, cotton, sugar, flax, and to rear horses for the East Indian trade. Land cost 18 cents an acre and a total grant of 4 million acres. The first settlement in Cockburn, being Clarence, was controlled by Thomas Beale as Clerk of Works. The British government, finding overseas colonies to be a liability, handed the project over to a Sydney merchant named Solomon Levy. He was a financial burden, it was his responsibility. There were problems for Beale from day one. On arrival, the supply ships from our east coast supplies did not arrive. Also being a few weeks late on arriving at Fremantle, the land grant was cancelled. This is scenes of Beale's home in Serpentine, Jarrahdale. So I had to take indifferent land between Clarence and today's Mandurah. Certainly a big disappointment for the 490 men, women and children who were living in tents, camps of a sort, that had arrived on the ship Gilmore, and only weeks away was the ships Hooghly and Rockingham. So John Beale had major problems from day one. This is the scene of Beale's home, which was called Lowlands. Prior to that was called Serpentine Farm. After 5 months at sea, they were on their back foot before they had time to assess their new colony or country of choice. Storms in today's gauge roads hit at the Rockingham on arrival, and the passengers lost almost all of their possessions. There certainly was no supermarkets them days. The only supplies to what they had was what they brought themselves. That's the layout of the home in Lowlands in Serpentine. They certainly were our pioneers, and despite their adversity, they were to pave the way for WA, as they were those to thank for WA being such a wonderful place to live in today. We certainly thank them. Thomas Beale, as clerk of works, must have had problems not only in the food supplies but on the health side of life. Also, there must have been big problems, as only a short time on the Australian shores there was around 60 burials, and where those graves today, no one seems to know. It's very, very sad. Later the migrants that came out to Clarence slowly left, and the homes were made in Rockingham, Mandurah, Pinjarra. So what of Beale, Armstrong and Thomas? Scenes, internal scenes of the home that was built, which is called today's Lowlands, Serpentine, Jarrahdale area. Thomas Beale was described by Lady Hasluck as a man that showed compassion, understanding and much foresight, and on more than one occasion showed uncommon bravery. Later lived at today's Lowlands, which we're filming now, which was first called the Serpentine Farm. It is in Serpentine, Jarrahdale, which later was taken over by his son Thomas Beale Jr. There's the cattle sheds. There you can see rainwater was of short supply even. It was better water than what the well water was in that vicinity. And the rainwater was very, very essential. Another one of the old homes could be the foreman's cottage. Note the fence. Look into these photos, you can see it tells you a lot on what their fencing was and their general living in those days. Note the area there where they would lift the products, such as hay or whatever it may have been that they were storing, into the upper floor. Once again, note the fence. In 1830, while Beale was still in charge in the Mandurah area, supplies were sent in every 3 months. They consisted of flour, 4,800 weight, beef and pork, 1,800 pounds, rum, 54 gallons, sugar, 360 pounds, tea, 10 pounds, a certain meat, 264 pounds, tobacco, 72 pounds, vinegar, 30 gallons, and of course, if supplies were late in coming, and some may not have come at all, Beale would face the brunt of no supplies for those that depended on him. Plus there were problems also with the Aboriginals, with looting and driving away their stock. Thomas Beale Sr. had a thankless task as the first in charge of the colony on Australia's west coast, but he and others were true pioneers in paving the way for WA. There's the layout generally of the farm. You'll see a part of the Serpentine River on the right, and they basically weren't far off the river. And no doubt it was quite a busy stream. And of course later through those areas was a lot of drainage work done, mainly in the Depression days of the Beale estate. Thomas Beale Jr. also played his part in our state's pioneering days, as he took over lowlands, and at 19 years of age he was joined by his grandmother, a Mrs. Aiton, Mrs. Beale's mother, who no doubt, being his housekeeper, was a great guidance as Beale's wife and two daughters returned to England. The farm was, them days, called Serpentine Farm, and later called Lowlands. This gives you a guidance, as lowlands in the green, gives you an idea where it is from the coast of Rockingham, etc. Fremantle, June 1829. Beale settlers would arrive in December, so certainly coming to the great unknown. English shores, Whitby Upper Harbour, where many left for the Swan River colony, leaving this to arrive in Fremantle. What adventure.
Would he be my grandpa? I wonder would he mind?
Rooseheads, Fremantle. Amelia, HMS Challenger with 28 guns, HMS Sulphur which had 8 guns, lying at anchor, and on shore was Captain Sterling and his staff. Yes, it was 1829.
Hey old man Miranda, aren't you here?
Obelisk built in 1839 as a shipping guide to shipping entering Fremantle. We'll have more of the obelisk later on. Sulky and Horse, Mr. and Mrs. McMullen, outside Chesterfield Inn. Mr. Bell standing and Mr. Hymas mounted on his horse. Modern transport them days. Captain John Thomas and wife, John's 50th birthday in 1865. His wife was Elizabeth Cooper. Joseph Thomas, John and Elizabeth's son, born 1844. James Bell, built East Rockingham Steel in 1865. Port Hotel Rockingham. His cottage is in ruins today in Mandurah Road, East Rockingham, opposite Chesterfield Road. There's a stagecoach in between, one of Cobb & Co's. James Thomas, that was another son of John and Elizabeth, born August 1848, farmed at East Rockingham.
He could take me fishing.
East Rockingham School was on the southeast corner of Mandurah Road and Wallard Road, built in 1865 by James Bell. The mound that it rested on is still there to this day. Harriet Poston, my word, the Postons played a big part. First white female born in WA in 1835. Picture taken when Harriet was 77 years old. Timber. My word, it played a big part over the years and still is doing so. This is a large whip which is being pulled by horses. The bullocks you can see here, they were the first in use, then the horses took over. Still making revenue for the state. And of course there's the controversy at the present moment on the logging. There's the horses there towing logs. Look at the size of the trees.
You couldn't paint the view. Amazing what a cross cart could do.
The old mill was Cooper's Mill originally, and that was demolished, and the materials they made a new mill was called Captain Fawcett's Mill. Certainly played a big part in its day. Hope Valley School. It was the first school in Hope Valley, built in 1894 by George Poston, and was demolished in the 1950s. The school site at Hope Valley Road can be picked up today by the electric power, and the land was donated by John Mortimer. English warehouse on the river Medina, Isle of Wight, no doubt supplies to Australian from these warehouses. And the name Medina, does it not ring a bell? Parkhurst Children Home, Osborne House this was called. From this home came many children to help with WA's labour force, as our state's early days lacked a labour force. Hence these children, and later came the convict era. Horse transport. Note the little child on the saddle. And the weatherboard group house, the era was early 1920s. Horses looking pretty good, Nick. Naval Base Hotel was situated at the ocean end of the Hope Valley Road, today's Alcoa. First proprietor was a Mrs. Selina Huxtable, Lee Hines. At one stage, the mail in Naval Base could be addressed Hope Valley Road Huxtable, hence Huxtable. Why? Jockey of the day, but why the suit? Picture was taken of Trevor Sloan after winning a race at the East Rockingham Racecourse. Well, he wouldn't ride with his hat on. From windy Rockingham. Hospital Wellard, later moved to Esperance. Quite a nice sized hospital, wasn't it? For those days anyhow. And that was the road in to the hospital, believe it or not. Notice the size of the trees and the bush generally. That's we're going back a long, long time. Farm machinery. I guess the horse appreciated the change, the start of the tractor era. Maps A here is the first grant that was given to Beale and his crew before leaving London. But being as they arrived a few weeks late, this grant was taken off, A was taken off them, and B was given to them. And as you can see, it went from Fremantle right through to Mandurah, Pinjarra area. Area B is more or less the Beale concept. Here, note this here is between Mandurah, Pinjarra area and Fremantle Perth. You can see a track along the coast and a track inland. Well, that was their transport tracks in the early days. And of course, it was horse and stagecoach days. This was the horse and stagecoach that ran between Perth, Fremantle and Bunbury. This is Beale Junior's area, and no doubt Beale Senior would have spent many hours here. Oh, by the way, I said that the southeast corner of the East Rockingham School, it should have been the northeast corner. I'm sorry about that. Whilst Beale was still in charge in the Mandurah area, supplies were sent in every 3 months. They consisted of flour. These are scenes of Thomas Beale Junior home. It is on today's Dampier Drive in Golden Bay. And as you can see, there's what is left of the Beale home. And of course just across those hills there is the ocean. So they weren't that far away, but when you look at the timbers and the size of it, they had to clear with a axe and a saw and a shovel. It was pretty hard work. Now let's get back to flour was 4,800 weight, beef and pork 1,800 pound, rum was 54 gallons, vinegar 30 gallons, and of course, if supplies were late in coming, and some may not have come at all, Beale would face the brunt of no supplies for those that depended on him. These are scenes of where their burials in Mandurah by the church. Church built in 1870-71 on 1 acre of land given to the church by Thomas Beale's daughter Dorothy and her husband Henry Hastings Hall. Many scenes around Mandurah to tell the story of Beale. There's the grave here. Thomas Beale, the early colonist, died at Mandurah, December the 22nd, 1865. Mandurah today, isn't it marvellous? Plus there are problems also with the Aboriginals with looting and driving away their stock. So Thomas Beale Sr. had a thankless task as the first in charge of the colony on Australia's west coast. But he and others were our true pioneers in paving the way for WA. Mandurah today in 1998. Despite adversity, he stuck to his task, and Thomas Beale Jr. also played his part in our state's pioneering days. As he took over the lowlands, and at 90 years of age, he was joined by his grandmother and Mrs. Oaten. Yes, they were the days. I'm glad it was them and not me, I'm afraid. Wouldn't he be proud of Mandurah today? Lowlands, which in its early days was called Serpentine Farm, was established in 1830 by Adam Armstrong, and Beale took over in 1840. Beale, no doubt, in his early days was very busy administrating the new colony, hence took over the farm of Lowlands in 1840. But of course those tracts we had looked at previously, it would have taken time to get from A to B them days because you were only riding a horse. A little bit different today. Give some thought to our early pioneers. They left so much behind: tradition, culture, heritage, and most important, loved ones, and the perpetual soft green rolling countryside which they were leaving for what? Despite adversity, some returned to England, but the majority stayed on either through their bravery or they had success. But we must all thank them, as long term it was all a great success. Today's Ravenwood Hotel, first occupied by the Armstrong family, homemade bricks, and in 1863 sold out to the Thomas family, and they converted the Armstrong home into a hotel. Armstrong moved to Dalkeith. Dairy farm scenes, although a battle at the start of the colony, in fact little gain until after World War II. As in the pioneering days, most of the farmers were behind the hay bale, as their income was so poor that they could not pay the interest on their bank loan. Many walked off their properties. 1998, a different haystack. Through the adversity of our early pioneers, this is dairy farming today. Isn't it marvellous? In the old days they were milking by hand. You were a good milker if you could milk 8 cows an hour. But today they milk hundreds with a machine. Whilst the cows are being milked, let's talk about the Thomas family. John Thomas Sr. and family. John Thomas had a tragic start to his new life in Western Australia, arriving on the Gilmore in 1829 while still at Clarence. He lost his wife Jennifer in childbirth. In April of 1830, only 4 months after arriving at Clarence, as well as losing his newborn son the following month. After a period of time assisting in our state's pioneer development, John Thomas never recovered from his wife and child's death, left the Mandurah area and went to live in New Zealand, year 1834. John Thomas Jr., only a young man at the time, accepted the family's responsibilities and went woodcutting with his shipboard mate William Gaze. But unfortunately William was speared to death by the Aborigines. So John left the woodcutting industry and purchased himself a boat which was the start of his seafaring life, hence Captain Thomas. A seafaring life was very important in the 1830s as there were no roads, only tracks. Hence the ocean and river waters were very popular for trade. John Thomas Jr. married Elizabeth Cooper of Mandurah in 1841 and built larger boats and operated as far as Singapore. In later years, when Adam Armstrong passed away, John decided to return to the land and purchased Adam Armstrong's property at Ravenswood, which he managed until 1876. When he left, the Ravenswood estate was left to his sons, and when his wife passed away in 1888, Captain Thomas moved to Fremantle. Captain Thomas passed on in 1907, aged 93. Thomas, as a child, stepped onto the beach at Clarence, which is south of today's Woodlands Point, with Beale and Armstrong, and saw the Swan River colony develop from the gold rush days as well as the convict era, and plus the first ships in the Fremantle harbour. Thomas' name was always prominent in the city of Cockburn records, as his great-grandson Hamlet John Thomas purchased land of Hamilton Hill and married Evelyn Quinlan. The Thomas story means a lot to older residents of Cockburn, as Alan Thomas, who we'll talk to shortly, prominent citizen of Cockburn, a councillor, and for many years our mayor. The Thomas family, which paved the way for WA. In other words, they were big helpers on that project. We must thank the Thomas family for the part they played in their new colony. Although met with disaster in the first few months of settling in Clarence, John Thomas Sr. had big emotional problems, but his family certainly helped to pave the way for us all in WA.
You remember, my darling,
Well, let's have a talk
at the
to
Boomerang
Alan
Cafe,
Thomas.
where I first met you, with lipstick on your lips and vinegar on your chin, at the Boomerang.
Yeah. Our ex-mayor Alan Thomas. No doubt you've seen Alan in 2 previous interviews, but Alan's ancestors came out from the Gilmore, virtually as the founding of Fremantle days. So Al, could you fill us in a little bit on what took place them days?
Well, the start off of the Gilmore was that Beale was to take up a land grant out here, more or less on the Scanning River, and he had dealt with the people in England and gathered these people together, and on the assumption that when he got to Australia, Western Australia, that he would be given a grant of land on the Canning River. And my great-great-grandfather was one of the people that was one of his clerks that helped him organise the expedition out here. Unfortunately for Beale and his people, they were a fortnight late in arriving in the colony, and the land grant was given up. And so Beale was most upset about it, and after much dickering with the colonial secretary at the time, he was given another grant of land, which was at Clarence Rocks down here, just south of where we're sitting now. And you must imagine their despair when they eventually landed at Clarence Rocks in the middle of December in 1829, And virtually the place, with the exception of the development along the foreshore today, has little changed since the day they landed there. And you can imagine English people coming out here in our midsummer in 40-degree heat, they just didn't know what had hit them. And you can imagine their despair when they landed on the beach, and all they had there was a cliff of limestone rocks and little else. And unfortunately, the Beale, being the leading man, he went a little bit off his head over the whole business, and being a country squire, the people that he had with him at that time looked to him to give them some direction in what they were to do. But he was of little or no help to them whatsoever. So you can imagine those people coming and landing all their goodies on the shore, which some of them had grand pianos and all the luxuries of the old country, which virtually they finished up chopping up for firewood and also building some rough shelters out of them to keep them away from the heat. And the whole expedition just fell apart. And the people in it, they either died there or they drifted apart. And the old great-great-grandfather, he eventually took off for New Zealand, I believe. Never heard of him again. But his son, John Thomas, he decided to stay here. Well, John was about 15. He teamed up with a fellow named William Gaze, and they went around the countryside looking for work. They was down at Jarradale, I believe. They got down there around that way somewhere, felling timber for different uses in the town of Fremantle, and eventually they got up into a block up on the Canning there, somewhere around about where Kelmscott is today. But the whole foundation of what was to be Clarence, which would have been, had it been a go, it would have been more or less taken precedence over the city of Fremantle. But it just died and nothing ever come of it.
Yeah. Well, that's good, Al. Thanks very much for that bit of history. Al is also a freeman of... Lovely to hear and see Alan again, as Alan passed away a few years ago. We had that talk around 1988. Now let's have a talk about Adam Armstrong. Adam Armstrong was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1788 and passed away at Ravenswood in 1853. He had married a Margaret Gow in Scotland in 1810. Unfortunately, Margaret passed away just before they were to leave England. They arrived on the 15th of December 1829, via the ship Gilmore. We are now viewing the waterways where the first of our settlers came ashore. Certainly a contrast to 1829. Little did they dream of a beautiful shipping complex would one day line the shores they first stepped on in their new country. The obelisk. Early shipping had problems navigating a safe passage into port, so in the 1830s era they built an obelisk which still stands to this day. Where is it? On the hill overlooking our shipbuilding and our beautiful waterway. In other words, it is in Cockburn Road, Coogee. Land we are looking at is now between our west coast and our Darling Ranges in the land granted as Group B. It stretches down as far as Mandurah, Pinjarra. Missing out on their Swan River grant, Adam then took up a grant in the Mandurah region. After a short time in Mandurah, they left to take up 320 acres of land north of the Swan River. He called his farm Dalkeith after his property in Scotland, and to this day in 1998 the district is still called Dalkeith, and on its Swan River boundary they call it Armstrong Spit. After several years at Dalkeith, Adam Armstrong sold out and returned to Ravenswood, just out of today's city of Mandurah.
Labour shortage was a big problem for our early settlers. There was a number of schemes involving British juveniles who had misbehaved and were sent out on a trial year. The year was 1834. The scheme was shelved for 8 years, then commenced again under a different selection system between 1842 and 1849. Property of Walter and Beatrice Armstrong. Walter was grandson of Adam Armstrong, born in 1859, died in 1944. Married a Beatrice White, and they had 11 children on this property. As you can see, it was almost a self-supporting farm. The growing of their fruit, vegetables, dairy products and all their essentials. Their property was on the west end of Hope Valley Road, demolished by Alcar when they purchased all properties in the vicinity. And see how they have replanted many trees, as this end of the property was virtually swampland. I was filming between the Old Coast Road and Rockingham Road, south end of the property where today's Cockburn Road meets Rockingham Road. On Adam Armstrong's return south after his Dalkeith experience, Thomas Beale placed him in charge of Mandurah's development, of which he had great success, and in no time dwellings were springing up everywhere. Being still in Mandurah in 1851, he was joined by his sister. Sadly, she passed away in 1865. When Adam Sr. passed on to his son Adam, he took over Ravenswood and further developed the property until it was purchased by John Thomas Jr., known then as Captain Thomas, after his seafaring life out of Fremantle, and Captain Thomas later purchased the Freemasons Hotel in Fremantle. Walter Armstrong's great-grandson of Adam Sr. purchased land in the Hope Valley, or known today as Naval Base, which was the property that we've just been looking at, and still are looking at. There's the old Rockingham Road, you can see traffic going through, and this is another section here which is up around where the caravan park is today in Naval Base, and in this vicinity here where I'm filming is where the original 10-mile well was on the Old Coast Road, and this is the area here in the vicinity of here where they say where the caves or the cliffs are is where the burial grounds were in the early days of the state, but no one can define just where they are. This region of the coastline was always popular. It was the first 10-mile well, hence a stopping place for our early settlers, as a track ran from Fremantle, Rockingham to Mandurah, and later there was a shop and cottages built on the hill overlooking the ocean, and when the caravan park was permissible, all the homes on the hill were demolished, but the caravan park still remains. Rockingham Road, 10-mile well, came into being when the Rockingham Road was built, and besides personnel requiring water to boil their billies, they also needed to give their tea model or such a drink also. Position of the well was just out from the tall palm tree that you're just seeing. The new road double highway was built virtually over the well and tea room areas. Their homes stood further back. As you can see, the double highway gets plenty of use today. Also some old fig trees still on the old site, but of course the well's gone and the old tea rooms is gone. This is the old mud map of the old tea rooms with the well and the palm tree. And in the lower section you can see the twin highway with the yellow section is where the tea rooms and the old 10-mile well were. And there's a short street opposite going up the hill going east. A lot of memories in that area. They weren't just the tea rooms, they were the naval base post office, and you name it, they did it. The old map showing the Beale estate region and towns that are still prominent today. It's a Beale estate there, but basically between those, the inner black line and the coast was the main Beale concept area. Certainly bush transport, the rivers played a big part in the early days. You know, they look like they're just coming or going from the town, and Mum's either just coming or she's going with them. Tracks was all they had them days, and where would they have been without the old horse? They did a marvellous job. The old Mandurah Bridge, still busy, despite the new bridge further upstream. And the section underneath the bridge, as you can see there, that's to this day is very, very popular with the fishermen, or fishing personnel I suppose we should say. Pinjarra Post Office, built in 1895. No doubt the early settlers would have appreciated the letters coming into the post office from overseas. Train travel, Perth to our southwest, and of course they all went through Pinjarra. Fairbridge Farm Church. Well, Fairbridge has a story of its own, and it is a marvellous story. Homestead of Edward McClarty and his family. It was called Evandale. Built around 1888. The McCarty families were prominent pioneers of the Mandurah and Pinjarra region. Today's youth today's youth are tomorrow's decision makers. Aren't they lovely shots of the children? Captain James Sterling had wonderful foresight and was WA's first governor. He told the British government that Australia's west coast was a place of consequence, and on Sterling's advice, Thomas Beale requested permission from the British government to settle 10,000 personnel. Hence, it all became motivated. John Thomas Jr. pioneered on despite great adversity. Adam Armstrong, great vision, had a wonderful family. Fremantle's first town plan, done by town planner J.S. Rowe, and the year was 1833. Tracks of our new development. Why tracks? Where were the buses? My word, it was a long time before there was any buses. Today, 1998, metropolitan area. You can see Coogee on the left, was where the boats came in. That was the vicinity of Clarence. And Mandurah today, no doubt, vastly different to 1829. The lighter green, or the green on the left, is the area our tape is all about. Thomas Beale Sr., whom Lady Hasluck spoke so well of. Whilst we watched the sunset over the waters, our first settlement arrived on, let us reminisce of the three gentlemen our tape is all about. Thomas Beale came out as clerk of works, and as he was responsible for his fellow man, naturally, he no doubt was blamed if anything went wrong. And a new country, virgin land, depending on supplies coming in by boat, and his wife and two daughters returned to England. So things must have been real tough. But long term, his ideas of bringing out early pioneers was really great for WA. He passed away in 1865. Adam Armstrong was one of Beale's right-hand men, operated between Mandurah, Pinjarra and Ravenswood, and also had 320 acres, of which is today's Dalkeith. He and his family were great pioneers for WA. He passed away at Ravenswood in 1853. John Thomas had a difficult start to his new venture, losing his wife and newborn son only weeks on arriving at Clarence. But his other children carried on and played their part in WA's development. John Thomas Jr., who had taken over the family responsibilities, being as his mother had passed away and father had gone to New Zealand, became known as Captain Thomas, passed away in Fremantle, aged 93. Thomas Beale. May God bless them all. After viewing Beale in the sunset, let's listen to our West Australian stories. The object of this film was to outline the general history of how our state of Western Australia came into being. I would like to finish off having a talk to two of my lifetime friends who are descendants of our early pioneers. Firstly, the story of their family snapshots I have placed on film. Each picture tells a story. Yes, their early days. You will shortly meet Alexandra Ingram, née Armstrong, known to us all as Ali. She is the great-granddaughter of Adam Armstrong, who arrived on the Gilmore in 1829. Also Thomas Hitchcock. Tom's ancestors were also early pioneers of Western Australia, arriving in Fremantle on the ship Simon Taylor, August 1942. Ali and Tom have spent many years on Beale's grant land between Fremantle and Pinjarra. They will tell us their story behind the snapshots, and then we will listen to their West Australian story. Tell us, Ali, about our first snapshots. Your dad, Al?
Oh, well, he used to do all the hard work, the ploughing and everything on the farm.
I remember his sledge and his horse.
Yeah, the old spread used to take the tuck around for the chooks and ducks. And
Who's that, Al?
oh, my mother. Yeah.
That's Beatrice.
Beatrice Armstrong, yeah. And Ray, that's Jack's son, Ray.
One of her grandchildren.
Yeah. Only had the one, no, they had three boys, I think. That's the old home.
Yes, that's all gone. The Alcoa mob took all that down, demolished all that in the 50s, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't have any growing anything like that when I was, until Jessie and I were growing up a bit.
It looks a nice crop of maize, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose that'd be your dad.
Yeah, I can't remember who they put on the back of it. On
Yeah.
the photo. Yeah, before I was born, anyway.
Yeah, that's a rare sight, isn't it? T-model Ford.
Oh, yeah.
But what I want to know is what's the hammer for? Look, you've got to bang them on the tyres with a hammer.
Oh, that was put in the paper. I think it's got it on the bottom of it.
And I believe they're on this trip they're going to Albany according to the photo.
Yeah, some
Who used to drive that?
musicians and whatever they were, dancers on the stage and everything else.
Was that a
Oh,
show?
no, they
Show
musicians.
people they were.
And there's the jockey.
Yeah, that's me going to school.
One of your friends?
Yeah, Millie Bucknell, little horse.
When you used to go from the homestead down to the Hope Valley School.
Yeah. 2 miles. We had
2
to
miles.
walk, otherwise.
Or ride.
Yeah.
Lovely little horse, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Oh, I don't know what its name was.
And then when you didn't ride the horse, you rode your bike.
Yeah, that was Jessie's bike. And I had to look after it, because she'd growl at me. It fell off it and she...
Now, who's the family there?
Oh, that was Sister Gladys and her husband Joe Ormerod and the 3 kids.
Outside the 10-mile tea rooms. That palm tree's still there, Ellie.
Yes, I know. We took a photo of it the other day.
And where was that? Was that between the house and the shop?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, who's that?
Yeah.
That's Alexandra Mary,
That's right.
1916.
Yeah.
You were young in those days.
Yeah.
That's the old Hope Valley School, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my
In the background.
teacher and
Yeah.
Miss Moss.
Yeah, the 2 girl Niggles.
2 girls and the girl. Lily and
Cat.
Kath, that's right. In the old hotel. When we
Yeah,
used to
minus
go
its
get the
roof.
mail.
Everything lost its roof in 1927, also 1934.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
used to
that red dot is approximately from Fremantle where the 10-mile well and the Watlup tea rooms were.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So Tom, you can tell us about the next shots because they're going to deal with the Watlup tea rooms.
That's the Watlup tea rooms. My father in about 1927, 28 bought 2 houses on the Beale estate, shifted them down to Rockingham Road, and that is one of them, and the other one was used as a home up the back of the block for living quarters. And then this was the two Beale estate houses re-erected down here. We moved out there in 1929 to live.
1929.
That's my family with me in the front, my sister Cecily on the left, my father, and then my sister Jean, my mother, and my brother Ted.
What about your dog?
And dog Jerry. Met an unfortunate accident later on. Up to Willie's night and the family, and my mother's sister next to Jean on the right hand side. She was from Sydney. And that's the lake that was a swamp, dug out to make an island in the middle with a bridge over it, so everyone could get over there to the garden and the rose garden, the water rose in the middle. That's the tank. We're putting on a tank stand with my father on the left, my brother on the right, and Norm Armstrong in the middle, all giving a helping hand. And that's me on Ginger the horse. It used to be a milk carter's horse. My father bought it for ploughing, and it was a good worker. And we've done a lot of ploughing around the Watlup farm.
Who's this good looking bloke?
Well, that's Tom, me. Spearwood Rovers Soccer Club.
Yeah, well, that's money taken for your refereeing, Tom.
I was
How many years
refereeing
you doing that?
in the white, and Pearson on my left.
Thanks, Tom. I apologise for the start of Ali's story. Technical problems wiped out the start, but here's Ali and Tom.
Yeah, I had schooling at the old Hope Valley School until I was 13.
And the
it was
distance,
closed down.
a couple of mile away?
Yeah, we had to walk each way 2 miles to go to school.
Yeah, but you probably had a bit of fun walking
Yeah.
with the other, well, there wouldn't have been many other kids, would there? How many kids have been to school?
There was Teals, there was a boy at Teals, and there were Pommy kids, you know.
Pommy kids?
Yeah.
Well, probably group settlement days.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
in the old Beale estate.
Yeah, there was many.
Yeah, we've been talking about John Peel earlier. 10 Mile Well.
The old white roads we used to have.
All white roads and pretty corrugated and pretty rough, weren't they?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And what about your life at 10 Mile Well? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, not that much, I don't think.
Yeah, in other words, it wasn't much different to the old homestead.
Oh, a lot of difference. Yeah, because you couldn't do anything, you had to be in the shop all the time. You
Yeah,
know. We had a nice garden then.
yeah.
Mother had a nice garden.
Well, that was my days when I first met you, was back in 1934. You were in the 10 Mile Well tea rooms. And on a
Yeah.
Sunday I used to go down for your mum and turn the old churn to make the ice cream.
Yeah, maybe
And I always got a free one for doing it.
I...
Yeah. Always got a free one for doing it.
Yeah, my sister and my husband lived down the back too with all the kids.
Mm. I know, well, as I say, there's still a palm tree or two around there now because it's all long gone. And the road's gone through, I think, where it was, where the tea rooms was.
The old tennis
Yeah.
court's gone there, isn't it?
Yeah, we had a big tennis court there. We used
Yeah.
to play tennis. Played a couple of players, I think, that's all.
How about mum and dad bringing up the family, such as your food supplies, your transport, your entertainment and so forth?
Oh, well, they never went out much. About 9 o'clock they'd all go to bed, I think.
And
Myrtle used to play the piano and we used to sing around it.
make your own fun.
Make your own.
You were never you were never depressed in any way, or as they say
No, I was all
today,
happy there.
yeah, stressed. And what about you used to have to come into Spearwood for your food supplies?
Yeah, what'd you say?
Bailey's, yeah, Bailey's.
Yeah. Yeah, we took the old Ford up one day and they'd put kerosene in it and I'd smoked us out.
Yeah, that's good. You got there probably.
Yeah.
That was that old Ford T we saw in the photo.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious me.
RO1, Rockingham 1.
RO1 was it?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I've noticed there's a few RO numbers around again now.
Yes,
Yeah.
bring it back.
And I made the inquiry to a chap, and I said it was just down the road here at the local shop close by. And I said to him, an RO number. I said, yeah, that was the old Rockingham number. I said, but are you from Roban? He said, no. He says, I'm Rockingham.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, there must be because of the latest plates, so they must be bringing them back, which is great. Good to see. Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about doctors and hospital them days?
Oh, well, I think I ended up in hospital with I had pneumonia once.
Fremantle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fremantle Hospital.
Probably took you in the old T model.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
Oh, we all had mumps once too, I remember all in bed.
Yes, all months days, yeah.
And his auntie'd come out to see us, and I can remember a screw on the top of the old eucalyptus bottle. Dear. It's all out of use, but it's cold, it was eucalyptus.
It's what was a big thing them days, it's just taken for granted today, isn't it? They just take it for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original 10 Mile Well alley was on the coast road, I'm told.
Oh,
So
yeah, the old well, yeah.
It'd be somewhere around about where the caps or the rocks, as you call it.
It's just that, it used to be a slight hill up to it, didn't it? A rise there.
Yeah. And I'm told in the vicinity there's somewhere also
Yeah.
I'm told also in the vicinity there's some graves there, but as yet no one can tell me where they are, but one day we may find them.
I used to live there. Some people, I remember Myrtle telling me that some people lived there.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. Now tell me something. Where did you meet Jim, your husband?
oh, at the shop. At the shop.
At your 10 Mile Well shop. Now that was a plus, wasn't it then?
Mm-hmm.
That was a big plus.
Yeah.
He was, no doubt, was working close by, was he not?
Dad.
No, Jim.
Oh,
Your
Jim,
husband.
yes, at Pitt's.
Yeah, working
Colonel Pitt's.
on the hits, yeah, because they originally were.
Colonel Pitt's, yes.
Colonel.
Yeah, he was originally in Spearwood, wasn't he? Then they moved out
I would never.
Yeah, originally it was almost on the corner of Mayor Road and Rockingham Road, almost. The place is still there, situated about 50 yards back off the road,
Yeah.
and that's where he had all his chooks.
Yeah.
And then they moved to where you're talking about now, just
2 daughters and
well,
a
about
son. Yeah.
I think that was around about 10 to 11 mile out of town, wasn't it?
11 mile peak.
11 mile
Yeah,
peak.
that's right, yeah.
11 mile peak.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's pretty interesting, Ali, or a little bit of history. Have you got any more to add that
Oh,
you can think of?
well, we used to go to the Coogee dances from there and walk home.
That would have been 3 mile. Goodness gracious me.
Jim used to make a noise like a rooster.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, still, the old hall's still there though, isn't it?
Yes.
Matter of fact, I learnt to dance in that hall. And the bloke that taught me to dance, I'm saying the bloke that taught me to dance was Wally Gordon, who was them days was the baker.
Yeah, that's right,
Steve
the
Gordon.
baker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
to school there.
can remember a little story. We were going home one day from Spearwood, no doubt from the soccer. We were going up the hill past the 10 mile well, approaching the 11 mile peak, this sort of thing. And there was, I was with Eric Westall. Eric got a flat tyre.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just, it must have been around about, going back, must have been around about 36 because the electric power had just gone through, see?
Yeah.
And the power had gone through, and consequently when the power went through they cut down a lot of trees. And then and just up past your 10 mile well going up that hill on the right, there were some big ones. So when Eric got a puncture, I left my bike on the side of the left hand side of the road, went across to Eric and we put the bike up against one of the trees, see? The butts of the tree that was left, and of course the big branches were hanging down. Well, a team of about 15 horses, wild horses were plentiful them days, as you remember, Ali and Tom.
Yeah.
And this team of horses come galloping down the street, saw us there, shied, and what does he do? He shies and jumps straight on me bike. And actually it wasn't my bike, it was Dad's bike, and he used to go ride it to work.
Oh.
And of course he was a great, with his bikes and things, he had wooden frame wheels and God knows what, you know, it was a beautiful bike. And of course I wasn't very popular. Well, at least I expected not to be very popular when I got home, but as luck would have it, when I got home, before I had a chance to tell Dad my story, he said, "Don't worry, son," he said, "I already know what happened." He says, "Wally Gordon the baker was coming along the road," he says, "in his horse and buggy, whatever it is, the baker's cart." He said, "He saw all what happened," he said, "so he told me the story."
Yeah,
So I got let off the hook. I was a bit nervous, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Anyhow, thanks, Al. Now we'll have a little talk to Tom about his ancestry-wise. What can you tell us, Tom?
Well, my father was born in North Fremantle, as I was, many years later, of course. My mother was born in Glebe in Sydney, and in his young days my father was a sailor, and he used to sail all around the world. And this is probably how he met my mother in Sydney. But when he changed ships and his father still lived in Fremantle, he came over here and then he brought my mother over here and they got married and lived in Fremantle for the rest of their lives, except for a period where they went to Bunbury. And they had 2 girls, Jean and Cicely, and Ted, and myself. But between Ted and me there was another son, who I never met because he died when he was 1 year old, and his grave is still in Bunbury. And there's a headstone still there.
And now what about, when did your your grandfather be, would it? Your dad's dad?
Yes.
He came out earlier, or was it your great-grandfather? Came out in 1842.
Yeah, my great-grandfather and my grandfather, they both came out in 1842 from Buckinghamshire in England and settled in James Brook in the Lower Swan.
Oh yeah, Swan, yeah.
Yes, worked for a Vivace there, which is known as, the area is known as Vivace, and then they bought property at the foothills of the Darling Range and farmed there for many years, and they're all buried in the Swan Cemetery on the banks of the Swan River. And in fact, the whole family, my ancestors are all there.
You're getting back to the early days, once again, 1829 when the Gilmore came on, it was a family called the Shores. That's the same ship that
My grandfather
came on.
Yeah.
It was either that ship or the next one. It might have been the Egyptian, but anyway, regardless of when it was. And Shaw was lucky enough to get Grant, through his goodwill, I believe, there's a bit of a story attached to it, up in the Upper Swan, as you talk around Jane Brook area.
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, 2 of their children had come out with them drowned.
Good.
Very, very sad. And you can just imagine how trauma it would have been them days,
Yeah.
you know, with...
Must have been terrible.
Yeah.
oh, my word, it would have been. Yeah.
My ancestors come out on the Simon Taylor,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
and but later on, another ship come out here, and it's called the Travancore, and on the Travancore with a lot of Irish girls, and they come out here, hopefully, to meet the immigrants and get married into them. And my grandfather married one of these girls called Honora Keane, and because they raised a big family, of course.
Mm.
And it was my father's mother, Honora Keane. And a lot of the family now have the name Keane as their middle name. Like my sister, Cicely Keane.
After your mum.
After the grandmother, yes.
It was lovely. It was
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah. And how do
Born
they...
in Tipperary, she was. I've got a bit of Irish in me.
Oh, you have.
English.
that was probably the point which we'll come to later. Now listen, what about Watlup days? How did you come to go to Watlup?
Watlup. Well, my father was a waterside worker, a lumper, they used to call him in those days, and he more or less could see the depression coming. So he had a talk with my mother and decided to buy land which was then the South Coogee area. And then they decided to build a house for living quarters, and then they decided to build a shop, and they bought 2 Beale estate houses, shifted them down, and one became the house, our home, and the other became the shop. And on that shop, that's where everyone, he still done a bit of work on the wharf, and the shop was run by my mother, my 2 sisters, and my brother to a certain extent. My sisters used to make pies and parties and scones, and people, Sunday drivers, used to come out and buy them and have afternoon tea there. And my father and my brother built a lot of shade houses around the area for people to sit in, get out of the sun, to have their afternoon tea, and also dug out the swamp to make an island of it, and that was a big attraction for people coming out that way. And we also used to make our own ice cream. And
you did?
I used to love it because I used to...
You used to turn up the use.
I get the free ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Now, where did the Willow Dell come in?
Well, that was a whim of my mother's because my father planted some weeping willow trees near the shop, and it was quite an attraction, and therefore it became Watlup Tea Rooms and the Willow Dell Tea Gardens, because these weeping willow trees were in the gardens, and they were quite attractive.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, what about your days, Tom, of growing up at Watlup?
Well, I had to work around the shop. My father had 3 dozen cows at that time. He finished up later on, he had 400 pigs. So I had to work on that part of it, and also I had to do all the washing up after the afternoon teas. And it used to slow me down from going to the beach for a swim at times, but I managed to get away later on. But in my memories of those days, are very wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to see those days come back again.
You would?
But it's all in the past now, of course.
Well, your life after Watlup, not forgetting, of course, your referee days, but you were quite some time a seafaring gentleman.
Yes, in the early years of the war, with my brother and my friends going into the army and going away overseas and all this sort of thing, I wanted to get into it. My father talked me out of it and took me to going on a merchant ship, which I joined in Fremantle in January 1943, and from there I sailed via India and South Africa to the UK, and I left that ship after being on about 11 months in Glasgow, and a friend that I had made on the ship took me home to his family in Liverpool, which is a big seafaring port, and that was my home for the next 14 years or so. That was my home port. I used to sail out from there. Whenever I come back, I returned to this family in Liverpool, and they were like a family to me. And of course, they used to remind me to write home to my mother as well.
And the present day, they're still your family, aren't they?
They're still their family because in 1985 I started going back over there to visit them, because a lot of them were grown up now, a lot of them were kids when I was there, and I've been back about 4 or 5 times or more, and a lot of them have been out here to see us. Whenever I go to England, they take us all around. They take us to Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland. I've been everywhere around there, and it's been great, and we try to return the compliment when they come out here, and we've done pretty well, and one of them has only just gone back home last week. So it's good to have 2 families.
And what about your Shell days? You were many years with Shell Oil Company, weren't you?
Yes, I worked for 28 years I worked for the Shell Oil Company. And I got that job through Stan Beale. He was a soccer referee when I joined the soccer referees. And I worked at the Kwinana refinery on the construction. And when that finished, through Stan, I was lucky to get a job with Shell. And that was a happy 28 years of my life through there. It enabled me to, I travelled around the state, all over the place, and give me enough money to get married and build a house and raise a family. They were good years for me, Shell.
During your sporting career as a referee, which you were a very good referee, fill me in on the amount of years you put in refereeing, Tom, because you're one of the state's best.
Well, I met at the South Metal Powerhouse on the construction. I met a man named Len Pearson, who used to play for Spearwood Rovers. He was a goalkeeper for them. Him, his girlfriend, who became his wife, and June, who became my wife, were great friends. So I met my wife through them. And I used to go along to watch Len play, and everybody else. I used to run the line, and I got very interested in it. I had a couple of games in the reserves, but I was getting a bit old for that sort of thing. I'd never be a good player. But other referees liked the way I run the line, and they took me in becoming a referee, which I did in time. And they were very good years too. I met a lot of good friends through soccer. I was lucky enough to be able to referee a lot of top matches, cup finals and international matches, and I thoroughly enjoyed those years that I was a referee.
In hindsight, Tom, would you change anything through your life?
No, I wouldn't change everything, because life has been good to me in lots of ways, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm still enjoying it too. It's been great, and I've got a lot of good friends in Ellie here, for instance. I've known her for that many years. It's not funny. You know, way back in 1934, I think it was. Alan Beale is doing this interview. I've known him for the same number of years, and he's been a good friend to me. And his family have been good, the same as Ellie's family. Of course, Norm Armstrong, Ellie's sister, became my brother-in-law when he married my sister many years ago, of course. And of course, they're all gone now, except their children.
In other words, Tom, your growing up days at Wattleup, as you said, you worked hard from the point of view of all the ponds had to be made by shovel, and etc. So many hundred pigs, this, that and the other, plus you're working in the tea rooms, assisting. That puts you in pretty good stead for latter years, didn't it? You knew what work was all about.
I knew what work was all about, because I had done a bit of hard work in my life, but I appreciated that, because everyone had to work hard in those days.
Yeah.
You didn't get nothing for nothing. But they were good. It was good for me, and it taught me a lot about life and how to meet people and get on with them. And you know, I feel very lucky.
I think to a degree is why the young ones, what they're missing today is, in other words, we grew up with a certain amount of discipline, which I think we would be a better today if we had a little bit more discipline in life for the younger generation. What you think about that? What do you think about that? I certainly
believe discipline is the big answer, because I remember in my young days I was pretty cheeky at times. My father used to let me out the backyard with a strap, and I had to learn a little bit about things from that too, you know, and it done me the world of good.
Yeah.
As I said, I learned how to treat people the same as they treated me.
Yep. Good, Tom. Thank you very much. Now, have you got anything else further you'd like to add, or you pretty well covered most things, I think, in life, haven't we?
Yes, I've had a good life, I've got a good wife, and I've got a good family of my own now, and they're going on pretty well, and I'm happy with that.
Good.
And if they have a good life as well I've had, they'll be very lucky.
Yeah, well, they've got to earn a little bit the same as you did, Tom. But anyhow, Tom, thank you very much for our talk today. It's been beautiful about your, in other words, your West Australian story. Now, Ali.
Thank you, Alan.
Yep.
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 Now listen, what, have you got anything further to add?
I didn't tell you about when we played a band for 12 years.
No, you didn't tell us anything about the orchestra, or your band as you call it.
Yeah, right.
Well, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we went all over the place, and the hotels, and all the clubs, and up in the bush we used to play. There was 2 guitarists. It was Jim played the mouth organ, I played the electric organ.
Electric organ.
Organ, yeah.
Yeah.
They reckon I was the oldest bop player.
And then, well, once again, of course, all this, you're growing up, your entertainment years gone by was, as you said, playing the piano, sing songs and things like that, so you were pretty well equipped, weren't you?
Yes, I like the music.
Through your youth, you were well equipped. And what about your sisters?
gardening.
Did they play the piano and that too?
No, only Myrtle.
Only Myrtle.
Only Myrtle.
And what about Jessie?
No.
Jessie didn't play at all.
No.
She was a lovely girl, though, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Had a little bit to do with Myrtle, Jessie and yourself, and as far as I'm concerned,
They all used to do a bit of singing.
they're all beaut people. Yeah. And your mum and dad, I thought they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly were.
Oh, they were too busy.
Yeah, your dad was always busy because I'll tell you a little story about your dad too. Apart from seeing him in the bush through Hope Valley there, or Naval Base, with his sledge and his horse cutting wood and all that for your tea room so you had plenty of wood for you making your pies, etc, etc. But one day he got off them days the bus only used to run as far as Russell Road, which was about the 8 mile out of Fremantle. Well, he still had the best part of 3 to go. So this particular day, Moretti, who was a market gardener out there, came along, and his truck was chock-a-block full of boxes, and there was 2 passengers in the front seat. See? So anyhow, Louis Moretti stopped, and he said, "I'm sorry, Waddy," he said, "but he said, I'm pretty full up." He said, "You can get on the running board." So with that, he says, "It'll be all right, Louis," he said. "I'll get on the running board," he says, "and I'll hang like a possum." Yeah, could you understand your dad saying that? Yeah. And he did. He got on that running board, I'm told. He hung all the way up until he got to the 10 mile well tea rooms. Yeah. Yeah. But no, they were great people. Well, as I said, he was a great grandkid of the gentleman that first came out to start the other way off, or one of them. Yes.
Percy had
Adam Armstrong
the buses, but they used to go to Willard.
Well, once again, there was no buses or anything out there, was there, until your brother started something, bit of a bus service and that, and boy, oh boy, the back roads were, they were shocking, big, all white roads and big potholes and,
They broke the big end or something. I remember it was bonfire night and we got stuck out at Willard somewhere. It was fog. And what's in that? Well, who had the butchers out there? Butcher's van?
There was a butcher's van out there.
Yeah, the people had the butcher, and he brought us home in his butcher's van. Oh,
yeah. I remember old Mr. Norcott, he had a sort of a truck van type of thing, and he used to pick us all up to go and come into the Spearwood dances every so often, all those through Naval Base. And also the Russell Road, Coogee Hall.
Well, there were people named butchers out there, wasn't there? I remember Dave Butcher.
Yeah, there was butchers out there.
Yeah.
They sort of come on the scene, I suppose, they wouldn't have come on the scene, Tom, till about 37 or 38.
Was their name Robin?
Robin Butchers, that's correct, yeah. Well, he married the girl Mumford from Coogee, and they finished up a butcher shop in Manjimup.
Oh,
But of course, that's many years ago.
Used to play too at the tent.
Mumford. Yeah, Mr. Mumford used to be MC at the dances.
Oh, that's right, good, he always was, yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I was getting mixed up with Jimmy Parrott married Bessie Allen.
Well, they went to Katanning, didn't they?
They went to Katanning.
They're still in Katanning.
Still bus driver down there.
Yeah, still in Katanning. Yeah, all right, I think we've...
Can I just say that in the early years of the war, petrol was very scarce. My father had a truck he used to go around the hotels and army camps and that, picking up slops to feed the pigs with. As I said, we had 400 pigs. Not be able to get petrol, he bought a gas producer and put it on one of the trucks, and I used to have to go out in the bush around my Dogluck Way, pick up all the dry timber I could. We'd take it back to our farm, and we'd burn it and make charcoal out of it. And it was one of those charcoal burners, and it was as good as petrol to get around with.
And how old were you then, Tom?
How old was I then? I was about 14, 15.
That's what I'm getting at. You were out in the bush getting wood and everything else at
Yeah,
14 or 15.
I learned to drive when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
My father and my brother used to pick me up at school at South Coogee. Then I used to drive the rest of the way home. So you certainly learned how to drive when you're on the farm in those days.
Different ball game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And what have you got to add, Al, any more?
Oh, I don't think so. Only we went to England when he finished on the war.
Oh, yeah.
Finished on the war, we went to England.
He must have been on the wharf for a few years too, wasn't he?
16, I
Yeah.
was 16
Yeah.
years. I went to the...
Yeah, well, very good. Yeah, okay, anyhow, more than thank you, Al, for having a talk.
That's all right.
And also to you, Tom.
Trouble is I'm losing my memory these days.
Yeah, well, we're all a bit that way. Thanks, Tom.
Well, that's all right.
Thanks
I was
for your
only
time.
reading about one of the pioneers in those days. I think it was Mr. Armstrong, had property in round Midlands, and he called it after the place they come from in Scotland, and that's how the name Dalkeith came into being.
Yeah. Yep, and I also noticed, which I've commented on the video, that Armstrong's Spit is a section of the river around the area of Dalkeith, and that's still to this day listed in the books as Armstrong's.
Yeah. From Spit,
Yeah. Yeah, okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ali.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks very much.
No, that's your brother.
Just call me Charlie. Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, good. Yeah.
Ellie's story at the start. I asked where her mum and dad met. Dad being a visitor to the old Narrogin Inn in Armidale, and the reason of his visits, no doubt, was because his heartthrob worked there, yes, a Beatrice White. They had a wonderful family, having 11 children speaks for itself. Also, I'd like to thank those that have contributed to the making of this video. Thank you for viewing. God bless. Today is the 22nd of January 1998. I am Alan Beale, being associated in the district of Cockburn for over 60 years. And all of those years, Spearwood has been known for its market gardens, and one of its specialities is its growing of a special onion. In my years of playing soccer for Spearwood Rovers, Cockburn, we were referred to as the team from Onion Town. Urban development is slowly diminishing our market garden growth area. So today I'm asking you to look and listen to one of our few market gardeners that are left, whilst he is in the old term pulling onions, but of course it is 1998 and it is now all carried out by machines. Let's go and have a look at how the machines operate. Today's modern method of what I classify as pulling onions, motorised. As you can see, come through the machine into the crate, pretty big crate too. And the other tractor comes in when the crate's full, lifts the crate, takes it away, and the other crate goes on the empty crate goes on the end of the machine. Action station. Away we go again. surface.
It'll be as important as it was in my day.
Yeah, I guarantee it is.
We used to cut them all by hand.
Yeah, big job on it.
Lucky you cut half a ton a day.
There weren't the old spear onions popular throughout the world, weren't they?
Yeah, you know that. This is a different variety to what we used to do in the early days. We used to go in the early days.
Yes, well, the interest to ask Matt, and between you and Matt can tell us the early days to today's variety. They're quite a big onion, Tom, aren't they?
They certainly are. We did have some big ones in our day, but these are, some of them are bigger.
I always was under the impression that the bigger the onion, the less they were liked in the markets.
That's true. True. They usually like a medium-sized onion.
So now Matt will tell us about it possibly shortly. He'll show us the old method. How Tom did it from donkey's years. As you can see on the method that as Tom's working now is a big difference to what the machine's doing. Although, as you noticed, there was a few that went through that weren't topped and tailed, and that's what the boys are standing on the side to do. And as you see, you can tell by the way Tom's working, he hasn't done it for many years, but he knows all about it. I guarantee you've topped and tailed millions in your day, Tom.
A few tons.
Hey?
A lot of tons.
Yeah, a lot of tons, yeah. They certainly are a bigger onion, aren't they? Yeah, good. Oh, thanks, Tom, anyhow. It gives the people some idea of just what the old method used to be.
So we are now.
That market gardener is Matt Marinovic. And with Matt is one of the pioneer market gardeners who, in his day, planted millions of onions for the family market garden in Spearwood. No other than Mr. Tom Evis. So let us listen while Tom and Matt tell us all about our Spearwood onion. I'll say good morning to Tom and good morning to Matt.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Tell us, Matt, you're the modern day man. The growth of the onion from seed, you plant from seed, you plant, the method in other words.
Well, what is happening these days, you buy raw seed, and with modern planting you have air seeders and different type of seeders, mechanical seeders, and a whole lot is done by tractor. You can seed 4 or 5 lines at a time, and it only takes probably a few hours to seed 2 or 3 acres, as long as the ground is prepared. And onion grows from the very, very small seed to present day where you can see it, how big it is. It usually takes around about 5.5 to 6 months from the time you plant the seed by the time you harvest the onion.
And then what do you do about the thinning out, Tom, Matt?
Well, these modern machines and modern planting machines, you can adjust them so you can space them out already as you put them in. I like my method where I get between 36 and 45 seeds in 1 yard, 3 feet long. If machines drop that many seed, I'm quite happy.
Well, Tom, tell us your day, mate.
Well, our day was entirely different to what it is today. We used to cut the onions, plant the onions by hand, and then when they were ready for harvesting, we cut them all by hand too. And it was a very slow process. In our days, if you cut a ton of onions a day, you were doing good. And with these modern machines, they can harvest up to 40 and 50 tons a day.
It's incredible, isn't it, when you stop and think about it? Yeah. And Matt, what month these days do you plant? And as you said just now, 6 months to crop.
Well, these ones that I'm harvesting at the moment, that are planted on 22nd of July. I also had one crop which was planted a day earlier, but that was different type of onion, and that one came a month earlier. That was Yates seed called Gladiator. And these days you can buy different seeds. You can plant them just about some time of the year, but they will come a month earlier or a month later.
In other words, all your seed today is purchased from the nursery, or wherever you may purchase from?
Yeah, some people grow their own seed, but I buy well-known seed. I usually buy Yates seed.
And what about your day, Tom? You used to grow all your own seed, I think, them days, didn't you not?
We did.
Yeah.
We grew all our own seed, and then we had to rub it. I remember when we harvest the seed, you had to rub it all by hand or over a screen, and then afterwards blow all the dust off, and then you get your seed. You get a clean seed.
And what do you wait for a windy day to blow it off?
More or less, yeah. You winnow, what they call winnowing.
Yes, it's certainly a big difference, and of course there was a big difference in the planting, wasn't it, in your day, Tom?
Oh,
Eh?
different altogether. It was a back-breaking job in my day.
And now once you got back to you, Matt. Once you've got your crop, marketing. What's your method of marketing today? I noticed what filming I have just done. It all goes into these big crates. And
Yes.
now, what happens now once you leave your market garden?
Well, Alan, I'm a one-man band. Today I got my son and a couple other people helping me, otherwise I'm on my own. So what I do, I just harvest them one day, and next day I just cart them to a merchant. I deal with Aldrich Holdings, and whatever I cut, whatever I produce, they just take it in bulk and they send it further on. If they have export, they send it for export. If they haven't got export, they use it for local market. Not necessarily export overseas, but they send a lot of onions to eastern states as they require.
Okay, Tom, your day, mate. The marketing of the onion.
Oh, yeah.
Was it in crates, in bags, or?
Well, in bags and in crates. Mostly bags. Mostly bags in early days.
Now, compare your, I think you stated just a while ago in relation to the tonnage that you cut by hand compared to what Matt's tractors are doing or machines are doing. There's certainly a big difference. And marketing your day was, I suppose, it would have been mainly Fremantle markets. And Matt's talking about providors and so forth, more or less.
Not only Fremantle markets, we had Perth markets. That was West Perth markets. It meant getting up about 4:30, getting up there about 5 so you can get unloaded before the rush, and the sales used to start at 7 o'clock on the dot. 7 o'clock sales, so you had to get all your trucks out or your vehicles out of the place before the auctioneers start selling.
Yes. Okay, now marketing today, Matt, the general marketing, I can recall in the early days it was mainly a horse and cart job, and it was quite a trauma to get into Fremantle, to the markets, and no doubt that's why the Fremantle markets were mainly used them days instead of Perth. And of course as time came on, motorisation came into it, as it's come into your cropping now, and then the Perth markets were mainly used, but I think the Fremantle and Perth markets are now defunct, and I think it's in Canning Vale somewhere now, is it not?
Yes, Canning Vale, and these days you don't talk about horse and cart, you're talking about Volvos and big Kenworths and big internationals, where people used to take 10 or 15 boxes to the market. In early days, now they're taking 10 or 15 tonne at a time. So it's completely different production, and also different way of marketing and selling.
Different ball game, isn't it?
Different ball game altogether.
Yeah. Planting of the Spearwood onion in the young days, Tom, was quite an art. And I'm told, well, I know this from experience, that some of the Spearwood boys were planting in the vicinity of 4,000 onions an hour. Now, knowing your record, you were pretty good, pretty fast on, if the finger stood up to it, of course. You were pretty good. Now, give us a little bit of history on of the planting in the old days.
You were right about 4,000 an hour, but then I always wanted to do better than that. So my record was 40,000 plants in one day. Now that's not an 8-hour day, that's probably a 9-hour day. You long hours in those days.
And you would plant, what, 40?
40,000.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good, isn't it?
My record. I didn't do any better than 40, but I did do 40.
But tell me something, how does your finger stand up to it?
Oh, well, the ground is reasonably loose. It's ploughed, and it's all you do is make lines by hand, and then you bend over. You had a bag in front of you with onions in it. You get a handful of onions, and you plant.
Yeah, that's for sure. As you say, the preparation of your land was a big thing. I can recall in Mr. George Goodchild's day, he used to, his manure used to come from the rabbit works. You know, all the rabbit bones and all that. And sometimes you'd get caught with a nice old rabbit bone in your finger. And you may recall that also.
Well, I didn't hear of that one, no.
Yeah. Now, a trip to market pre-war days, as I said, was mainly horse and cart, and it's quite a time-consuming operation. Hence, the Fremantle market was a long trip. With motorisation, things changed. 3 to 4 a.m. mornings in the markets, and evidently in 1998, Matt, that's changed again, because as you say, you have so many tonnes you just take up during the day, and that's it.
Yes, yes, Alan, and I think the whole marketing system has changed, and where in Westport used to be you pay so much commission to sell your produce, but now Canning Vale is completely different. There's no auction, so I don't know how that system works because I don't deal with them, but there's a lot of people who are not very happy with this system of selling produce up there now. So things are changing, but not necessarily for better.
And where are the onions going? Are they still going pretty well all over the world, or mainly the Asian market, or a big percentage?
Well, we lost most of the export market to Asia and Europe, but still a good deal of it is going over there. We can't compete with other bigger growing states like Tassie, and I believe New Zealand is sending a lot of onions to Japan, and they have different system over there with Japanese markets. They say, right, you take our dairy produce and whatever, we'll buy your cars, where system in Australia doesn't work like that. When I was in New Zealand 3 years ago, they had lots of onions over there, and all the onions were pre-sold before they even got out of the ground. And we sometimes have thousands of tons of onions, and sometimes we dump them. We don't know what to do with them. So, yeah, people could, if they're big growers, people could change the system of selling and seek their own exports and deal direct with exporters overseas. There's no board as it used to be once, so it's free market. If you can get your buy overseas, you're quite free to send it as long as the stuff is good. Do you think that will eventuate with the potatoes? There's a bit of controversy on at the present moment with the potato board, isn't there? Or has there always been? Well, with potato, I used to be a potato grower myself, and as far as I can see, potato board in that respect works well, because where you're controlling production and sale, it can be quite successful. Where with onions, when you had onion board, they were only controlling sale, not the production. With potato board, I think for smaller grower, potato board is still still the answer. Who wants to get rid of potato board is some of big growers. Those big growers who think they can control and have monopoly of growing and also selling, where smaller grower just can't compete with them these days. As you can see, there's very few growers left in Spearwood. They're all moving to bigger plots down Harvey, Pemberton and Manjimup and elsewhere, because there's not much good land left in Spearwood.
It's certainly going fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about, you can answer this question, Tom. In the early day, I read that back in the days of the fruit growers, around about 1913 when that started, that the chap by the name of Simpson from the Fremantle markets worked in with Mayer and Brindle's to get what they classified as the Spearwood Globe onion. And no doubt, talking to Matt yesterday, that has changed now to other types of onions. So you fill me in on the Spearwood Globe days, and then I'll ask Matt about the modern type of onion.
Well, in our days, we had what we call the Spearwood Globe, and we didn't have many other varieties. Almost everybody grew one variety, which was called Spearwood Globe. Now that Spearwood Globe was an onion that would not keep, because the skin used to peel off quite early. So you couldn't keep it more than a month or so, and then it started to deteriorate. But today, I believe the onions that they have on the market today and the ones that are produced will last 6 to 8 months.
It's a big difference, isn't it?
Very good.
Can you answer that one, Matt?
Yeah, that's quite true. Alan, today with modern seeds and modern technology, they have developed a type of onions which is in a cream gold variety. So there's different types of cream gold onions, and that's very good keeper, very good shape, very good color, and also it's a long-lasting onion. And also that onion is suitable for mechanical harvesting, where Spearwood Brown early one, if you put them through the harvester like we do today, they wouldn't last even a month. No, because they get bashed about.
Bruised, yeah.
They get bruised. Where today's onion, they're hardy, sometimes they're as hard as a rock, and they can stand a bit of punishing.
Now, Matt, sorry, Matt.
Also, that's the onion that European market, when they were exporting to Europe, they were demanding it. Mm-hmm. But if you ask me, would you like to eat this cream gold? On a barbecue, yes. Cooking, yes. But if you want it for salad, no, no, no. Spearwood Brown is still the best one if you want it for salad.
And that no doubt, who did the experiments with all that? Was it the Agriculture Department? Or?
No, I think Agriculture Department didn't have very much to do with developing this type of onion. I think it was, any cream gold originated from New Zealand. And I believe New Zealand is the leader in cream gold varieties. Then Dutch took it over, as far as I know, and it's been developed even further, and we're getting different varieties all the time, and they're getting better and better.
Well, that's good for the consumer anyhow, isn't it?
Well, it's a good looking onion, and that's what people like these days. They not necessarily the taste, they go more for appearance. And if the onion looks good, it's worth buying it.
Yeah, that's correct, because let's face it, onion's used for nearly everything, isn't it, in the cooking?
Yeah.
We found that in certain sections of even America a few years ago. A lot of the places you sort of didn't seem to get onion in your meal, so perhaps they need to take a leaf out of some of the New Zealanders' book then. And how did you find the general growth of it and so forth, the handling of it all in New Zealand? Pretty top of the wazzer?
They have different climate where why the onion is well known, also Tasmanian onion, because they haven't got severe summers. When we have very hot summer over here, onion might look good, but in actual fact it could be slightly sunburned. And when it gets sunburned, the second or third skin gets indentation. We might not notice it straight away, but as the time goes on, within a couple of months, it starts to develop that black muck there, and that will speed the process that onions will go off quicker. Where New Zealand and Tassie, their summers aren't so severe, so they can dig their onions any time in the summer and just leave them on the ground to mature, and they mature quite well, and that's why they keep a lot better.
Yeah, well, I think we've just about covered most things. Can you either you think of anything you'd like to bring up of the young onion stories, in other words?
Well, not at the moment.
Not at the
I
moment?
think we've just about covered everything.
No, I think for the benefit of the people that will enjoy this tape, knowing all about the Spearwood onion. After all said and done, there's been thousands and thousands of tonnes grown in Spearwood over the years, isn't it?
Well, one good thing I would say, we're producing more, so your people out there eat more, so we can feed you better, and so we can sell you more onions.
You know, one little point that I want to ask both of you, Matt, tell me when you came to Australia and a little bit of your story.
Well, I came out here as a little boy. I was only 15.5 years old back in 1959, and I was taken more or less away from my parents. Not taken, but you know, I decided to leave my parents at that early age, and I came to Spearwood, where I spent the rest of my life in Spearwood just about, and I had great pleasure meeting you, Mr. Beale, through Spearwood Rovers Soccer Club, maybe as early as 1960.
And we've been good mates ever since, isn't
That's
it?
right.
That's for sure. Come on, Tom, I know you've got a bit of history.
Well, yes. I was born on the golf fields, actually. I was only 8 weeks old. My parents brought me down to Spearwood, and I've been here since. So that's a lot of years. Nearly 82. 81 3/4.
Well, you've certainly seen some changes in Spearwood.
Oh, I certainly have. The housing has pushed all the small market gardens out, and they've gone down south on the big acreage. My young nephew is growing 60 tonne. They told me he'd be growing 60 tonne of onions this year.
Well, 6,000 tonne.
No, 600.
600 tonne.
600 tonne,
Yeah.
sorry. 600 tonne, he told me.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of ground down there with modern irrigation and everything. And like Matt was saying, we used to cart 10 or 12 bags to the market in a horse and cart. He can cart about 25 tonnes in one of his trucks.
That's right.
He's got a big Mack, modern Mack. He can cart 25 tonnes
But haven't we all been lucky throughout this area and through our southwest too? Water. We've got a very good underground water supply, haven't we?
Yes.
I mean to say, we're only asking you, Matt, coming along in relation to your well and your bore. Give us a little bit of story on that.
Well, we are lucky in Spearwood area that we have a very good ground water supply. I'm very lucky that my bore is in limestone, and it's very, very good drinking water, and doesn't leave any stain on shed or anywhere around the place, because it's just about pure. There isn't much iron or impurities in it. But we should be very responsible, as I think all market gardens are, not to use and overuse it, because it's there today but it might not be there forever. So as a market gardener, I try to look after the environment and use water as less as possible, for two reasons. First of all, I like to conserve that water for others who come behind me, and secondly, if I pump too much, it's costing me too much. I have to pay SEC electricity to pump it out. So I have to be careful in both ways.
And you are what, were you saying 30 feet in the old terms of water?
Yeah, I have, well, I was hoping to get open water, but when I was going through the rock, but when I got to the level of water, I ended up in a sand pocket, so I couldn't go anymore, so I had to get driller out here, and he put spear down. The spear is, or screen, is 30 feet plus 30 feet of casing. So I'm drawing water from 60 feet below the surface of the water, plus 32 feet to the level of water, so that makes it to about 90 odd feet.
And that's a 6-inch casing, I think you said.
That's 6-inch casing, yeah. And 5-inch screen, stone and steel screen.
Yeah, that's very good. Tom, no doubt in your day, you've worked on the wells.
I dug a few, and I helped to dig a few, and along Rockingham Road, it's limestone, and you only went down some places 10, 12, 15, 20 feet, and you dug a well. But if you're in a situation like Matt here, where there's no limestone, you've got to go down a lot deeper because there's a lot of sand. Our wells, of course, we only had little gardens, talking about 2-3 acres. Today they have 20 acres and 30 acres in one area, 40 acres. So you need a lot more water. We could supply our garden with a 10 horsepower motor and a 2-inch centrifugal pump, whereas today it needs a lot more power, a lot more electricity and a lot more expense to water the big acreage that they have today.
Yeah, what would yours be, Matt?
Well, I have only 15 horsepower, and it's 2.5 inch stalker centrifugal pump. And for my area that is here, I only have 6 acres, including the house and the shed. So with 6 shifts, I can water the whole lot. That's 3 hours watering every day. So that has been my problem. System that I got here is probably, it's not up to date, but this was the best that was put out, say 30 years ago when I did develop this land as a market garden. Where on today's terms, this would be probably superseded.
And do you think that, I noticed coming in there was a for sale sign. Now, do you think it's only going to be a matter of time before this is all going to be urban?
Well, yes, I hope I can sell. I already subdivided on 1 acre lots, and I'm not spring chicken anymore, so I've done my bit in the garden. Kids are growing up and bigger, and I think it's time for me to give up, because on a small area like I have here now, as I said before, we just can't compete with the bigger boys who have 50 or 200 acres or more.
Yeah, well, I think we've pretty well covered everything, have we not? I think we do, I think we could keep on talking all day.
Oh, you could, yes.
But so what I would like to do is thank you very much, Matt, for allowing me to come and interview you, and the same with you, Tom. Thank you very much for coming down with me this morning, and I think that this tape will turn out quite good, and it could be beneficial to a lot of people. Let's hope so.
Thank you very much.
But once again, Matt, thank you, and to you, Tom, also thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah,
Any information that I can get to anybody, I certainly would.
Yeah, well, you've played a big part over the years, Tom, with the fruit growers. You was the president for many years, and you've done a good job. So, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
God bless. There goes Matt. He's got to go back now and carry on with the work that we pulled him away from. As you can see, the urban development is not far away from Matt's property. So I'd say it'll only be a matter of time. Whilst we're looking at the scenes of today's Fremantle markets and its surrounds, let me tell you about the system in its early days. The Fruit Growers Association was also instrumental in changing the marketing system for their products to one that gave better protection against buyers ganging up against them. From the time of the opening of the Fremantle markets in 1898 until 1914, the system of marketing produce did not change and usually operated to the growers' disadvantage. A typical early morning at the Fremantle markets in 1913 would find 40 to 50 growers, carts and wagons drawn up into the spacious angles marked out on the floor, loaded with every variety of fruit and vegetables. Among the turnouts would be Armstrong from Rockingham, Newman, Anderson, Carrillo and Whittam from Coogee, Semple, Clark and Hammond from Jandicott, Mayor, Bailey, Honeysett, Rod and Follington from Spearwood, and Pearce from Bibra Lake. Lines of retailers' vehicles were hitched to the rails in the street around the markets, and as the retailers bunched on the footpath to set the prices, they would give the growers gathered inside to agree on the minimum prices they would take. As soon as selling began at 6:30 a.m, the growers were faced with a ring of silent buyers who watched the small trading with housewives and boarding house keepers and waited for the growers to break ranks. Inevitably, one of the growers cracked and dropped his prices, and his fellows were pitched into catch and can selling, taking the prices they could get. Alf Newman's voice carried above all those echoing under the high tin roof, and Alf Mayer slid sovereign after sovereign into his chamois-lined trousers pocket. At the end of the selling, those growers who had fallen behind were left to hitch up their horses and hawk their surplus produce around the streets of Fremantle. Early in 1915, the auction system of marketing was introduced to the markets by Frank Simper, the secretary of the Fruit Growers Association. Simper was a rough diamond who held a high reputation among the growers and was known to have their long-term interest at heart. He had worked closely with Mayer and Brindles, whose property you will see later, to develop the Spearwood Globe onion from Spanish plants, and was instrumental in arranging the carting of straw manure from northwest cattle boats to Spearwood when local manures were in short supply. From 1915 onwards, produce was auctioned by Simper at the Fremantle markets, and the district growers began to get a fair return for their labours. Fremantle markets today, as you can see, it is a true markets. As the markets today, as will be discussed with Matt and Tom, today are at Canning Vale. This is Bob Budd and his mate holding up today's onions. And as you can see, the Fremantle markets are not that far from the Fremantle Esplanade. So it's in a prime position in Fremantle. Handy the Cappuccino Strip, as it's termed today, South Terrace. Fremantle Technical School, that has also been there from day dot. Many thousands of personnel from the primary schools has gone through these premises in the early days. 6 a.m, sun up, overlooking the markets. And as you had heard earlier, 6:30 is when the markets commenced their auctioning. As you can see, the gates are shut. This film has been taken at 6 o'clock and they're not open until 9. No doubt the old Norfolk Hotel, that could tell a story or two of the growers and the market personnel. No doubt visited the Norfolk Hotel quite often. This is the old sections of Fremantle, one of the nicest spots in the world. We discussed that Mayer and Brindles were in the early days working with Mr. Simper on the development of the Spearwood Globe. This modern village is where the Mayer and Brindles property was. And as you'll see in later a shot of it, you'll see the swamps down. As you can see, there's a swamp down there. You'll see that in a later shot back in 1912.
In other words, these homes are on the spot of the Mayor and Brindle's garden, George Goodchild's garden. The Sahoys are just a little bit further up. And behind these homes here is where the Mayor and Brindle's home is still there today. As you can see, there's a swamp right down there in the background, and on the front right here is a crop of onions. Mayor and Brindle's place, Spearwood, 1912. In the old days, they used to have 2 horses in a lot of properties from their gardens to the main road. Reason being, it was virtually only tracks, and 1 horse could not pull the loaded cart, so they used 2 horses until they hit the main road, and then one of their mates took the horse back to their property while the other carried on to the markets. In this particular case, they're carting in a load of wood. They used to cart the wood in and bring back manure. The old horse and plough, as you can see, that is basically on the edge of the swamp, which today is being filled in by thousands and thousands of cubic metres of soil for urban development. What a shame. What a shame. The old Newmarket Hotel. As you can see, there is the horse trough where, whilst the horses were having a drink, the proprietor would go inside, leave the old horse where he was, and he'd also have a drink. And the old saying goes, it is just as well the horses knew their way home, because their owner was not in a fit state by the time he came out of the hotel. As you can see, no doubt that old cart and horse had done a lot of work and carried a lot of produce in from the Cockburn area into Fremantle. The old lady sitting in the sulky is the proprietor's wife, and the gentleman in the waistcoat is the proprietor. I thank Tom, Matt and the Market boys for their participation in the making of this tape. God bless. On the video of the new style machine wise planting onions. I have with me here Norman Bishop. Now Norm's been planting onions for most of his life, and Norm will give us a procedure and just how they used to do it in the early days. Now Norm, you've got your, for the purpose of this exercise, you've got your onions in a ice cream container. What was the old style?
In the old days, we always used to scavenge around and get the square old kerosene tin, which was ideal. They were about 18 inches high, and they held a lot of plants. And, well, they were square, and it was much easier to handle, and, well, we used the old kerosene tin for everything. There was no plastic...
You said the right thing there. They used them for everything.
Yeah.
They did, that's correct. And what about, I think some of them I used to see years ago, they used to have a sugar bag cut down to put their onions in the plant.
Yeah, some had a sugar bag around their waist, and they used to put the onions in there. Quite a few did it. I never ever tried it, but I thought as you moved, the onions used to get mixed up. They'd get out of line, and they were It was harder to handle. But I know a few did, but I never ever tried that idea.
Yeah. Anyhow, we're going to have a look at Norm. He's going to show us how they used to do it in the old days. Just hold a few up, Norm, and just give us an idea. They're more or less top and tail, are they not?
These are pulled out of the ground, and the roots are cut off, and the tops are cut off. And they go in the ground, and they go backwards for a while. I've got a few up there that have been in a week. They go backwards, and then all of a sudden, they shoot out from the middle, and off they go.
They take off.
Now, I've been planting onions since I was 12 years old.
You're 21 now.
And I've grown onions here on this block every year since I was 14 for the house. At this stage, this is only for our house use, but we still love our old Spearwood onions.
That's for sure. Anyhow, Norm, you can give us a demonstration on how they planted in the old days.
Yeah, and I won't be as fast as I used to be.
Oh, we're not worrying about that, Norm.
Norm's got his handful of onions ready to plant.
Right, off you go.
As you can see, I just pushed in with a finger. You can see the reason why in the heyday these boys used to plant thousands and thousands an hour. Anything between 4,000 and 6,000 an hour.
You want the ground nice and soft.
That would be the secret of it, Norm, wouldn't it?
I mean, I'm slow in these days, but it used to be fast.
Well, you're not going too bad. How long are they normally before you pull them, Norm?
These should be ready early November.
November.
These are classed as the early onions. In the old days we used to have early and late, but now there's late and quite a few.
Are they a fairly carefree crop, what I mean by spraying and all that?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Just spray a little bit now these days for mildew. But yeah, it's quite good.
Thank you, Norm, for showing us all the methods of onion planting in the early days. Beale was noted for its onion production. They grew almost all onions for WA usage, and many tons were transported to our east coast as well as overseas. Norm is planting these late July and, as he said, ready for pulling by November. No wonder in the 30s and 40s they called our Spearwood Rovers soccer team the onion growers. A little more of our bygone history. Well, to follow on from our previous picture of Norm planting, which is a few weeks back, maybe about 12, you think, Norm?
About 12 weeks, 12 weeks.
You're
About 3 months.
You said that you'd be pulling him in November, so here it is, mid-November, and you're pulling him. So let's have a look at you pulling him, Norm.
Well, this is, about 12 weeks later, and this is the, we saw the young plants going in, and this is the result. This is the result of those. These are the same onions. The good old Spearwood bullets. And you can see they're not a bad crop at all.
No, I think any market gardener would be pretty proud of those, wouldn't they?
They're not too bad at all. So, and today I've got my cousin with me, her father won this cup. He won it for 3 years. This is for planting onions in the early days. He won it first in 1925, then 1927, and then 28.
Well, that's pretty good.
That's pretty
good.
How
about your cousin coming across with you, Norm, and I'll film it to you. There's Norm and his cousin Merle, and the cup that you're going to tell us all about.
You got the dates that I mentioned before?
No, I'd like you to say whatever dates are.
George Smart, Merle's father, George Smart, won this 3 times. This is the cup for planting onions in Spearwood. He won it in 1925, 1927 and 1928 for the record number of plants per day. And
where was the property then? In Mel Road?
No, that was later. They were gardened in Mel Road. This was Hamilton Road. The old home is still standing there. The old stone.
Stone building in Hamilton Road still there to this day, the property where that cup was won.
Yes. And he died 12 months after in a well in Spearwood.
Yeah. Another well tragedy, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good, Norm, and I appreciate the fact that you went to the trouble to bring the cup, because it gives a good finale to the tape that we're making on the Spearwood onion.
I thought you'd be interested in the
Very,
cup.
very interested.
And there wouldn't be too many of these around in the district.
It may be the only one.
Probably the only one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyhow, thanks very much, Norm.
You're welcome, Alan.
And your buzzing cousin. And
yeah, I've been planting onions since I was 14 years old in Spearwood, and I'm still going. I'm
Yeah.
a few years past 14 now. That we're still.
But isn't it great to think that cup is still in the family?
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'll get a close-up one of the cups. Possibly the only cup that's still around that was won by the quality of the Spearwood onion. I think you've done that before, Norm.
This is how we used to pull them to dry them. We'd start off and cover them like so. The leaves would cover the next lot, and we'd let them dry, and then we'd come and...
It's best to dry those off before you take
Oh
the
no,
tops
you're
off.
just going to eat them, but I'm talking about for market.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. We used to just let them dry, and a lot of onions were exported from Spearwood years ago.
So when they dry, that top just falls off, does it?
Oh, well, yeah, but we used to just let them dry a bit and then just cut them all,
Top and tail them.
Top and tail them. I used to get shilling a box. I used to work. I used to be up 5 o'clock in the morning till 8 at night cutting onions. And in those days, the most I ever made was £5. Which
in
was
a day?
£5 a day, which was good money for a kid.
There's a few boxes, haven't it, Norm?
Oh, yeah.
100 boxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shilling the box.
And we had to work, well, hours and hours to get it. Your fingers would be bleeding and onion juice and your cracks in the fingers. It wasn't an easy job.
It's a bit different to on the early section of this film where they're doing it with the onion industry as all machinery. Yeah.
All machinery now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Norm, thanks very much.
Oh, thank you, Alan. Good.
Thanks to Norm and his auntie for allowing me to film the Onion Trophy Cup, which was won by their family several times many years ago. Let's finish with the transport of many years ago, the old horse and lorry. Bye for now. God bless.